She profiled the Syrian president's wife last year for Vogue magazine, and she joins me now. Thank you very much for joining me, Joe. What do you make of what is happening in relation to the First Lady popping up now and offering her support in this way?
It seems incongruous, Piers, and off the mark, and the statement doesn't make much sense.
When you interviewed her, what sense did you get about her as a woman and her place in the Syrian hierarchy?
What was most interesting is that she was born in Acton. She went to Queen's College, she went to King's College. I grew up in England. She was a very familiar figure. My best friend in school was the daughter of a Syrian stockbroker in London. So she was an English woman. It was an English woman I was talking to who happened to be married to the president of Syria. And so for us Westerners to look at somebody who's Syrian and say, oh, she's really Western. She's Western, she's English. And I think that the regime's been trying to downplay her Englishness. There was a kerfuffle. They didn't want me to give her English name, which was Emma. That was what she was called in school. And I found her very, very dedicated to these youth centers called Masar, which she had started off. And she said that they were to empower young people to create a civil society themselves in Syria. And she took me to one of the youth centers. Yeah.
And you found her genuinely caring when you went with her on these trips. So there's clearly a huge conflict between what you saw then with her and what is now happening. And many people say it's a kind of slaughterhouse from her husband to many of the same children.
It seems a crazy disconnect. She took me to one of these Masara centers in Latakia. There were pimply teenagers, wearing sweaters. It was a cold December night, crawling all over her, asking her questions, asking me questions. She was very at ease with them. She really took them on. She got into real conversations with them. And she said, this is what I care about the most. And because she's a banker, she talks about the antiquity of Syria being its hardware and the people being its software. And she said, what's important here is the software, and these kids are the software. So to go from seeing her with these children to seeing photos of this Hamza Ali al-Khatib, who was tortured and mutilated and killed and whose body was given back to his parents in May, you wonder, this is the First Lady of a country where this happened, where this is happening to teenagers, where kids are being slaughtered, where mourners at funerals are being slaughtered, and where the president goes on television and says this isn't really happening. It's profoundly disturbing to have even been near people who are so disconnected.
You met the president during your interview. What was your take on him personally?
Well, it was kind of inadvertent because I didn't really want to do the piece in the first place because I didn't really want to meet the Assads or go to Syria. But when I went, she said that she was going to cook lunch for me. And it was at their apartment. And there was Assad. It was Friday, which is the Muslim Sunday. And he was wearing a sweater, and he kept showing me his cameras, and he kept kind of following me around, and I got the feeling that he wanted to be interviewed as well. So I wasn't going to ask him any of the questions I could have asked him because I was in his home, and I wanted to get out of there in one piece. I asked him why he became an eye doctor. And he said that the reason he became an eye doctor was that it was very precise, it was never an emergency, and there was very little blood. And that's the quote that I used in the article. And nothing that he's done since then has proved that he's an eye doctor.
Well, what do you think is likely to happen now? Do you think the Assads can just battle this out, or do you believe that international pressure in the end will lead to them being overthrown?
You know, I'm not a political journalist. I told Vogue they should send a political journalist. They wanted a cultural piece. I only write about cultural matters. I was trained as an anthropologist. I look at things that are in front of me. I don't draw big international conclusions about things. I leave that to people who are far more qualified than I am. I don't know what's going to happen. I cannot believe the bravery of the Syrian people who started rising up in March and who have been consistently being heroic and brave and getting slaughtered at funerals and getting slaughtered in their homes as the regime claims that none of this is happening and that it's foreign infiltration and armed terrorists from other countries that are causing this. I think the fortitude of... Sorry.
It is completely. No, it's just completely outrageous. And we've run out of time, I'm afraid, but that's been a fascinating insight. Joe and Juliet Vogue, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Piers.